Welcome to the Coding Loft. My name is Samuel and today we look at the try-catch block in JavaScript, which is incredibly useful and helps you to avoid some of the most common errors in JavaScript. When you use the try-catch block in JavaScript, you basically try to run some code, and if that code doesn't work, you catch the error and you can do something with the error. And as you will see in a second, that is super handy in many cases. You will also see how the finally block works, which basically is a code block that runs no matter if you executed the code successfully or unsuccessfully. To get started, I have the simple customers array consisting of different custom objects with a name and an age. This one has first name, right? So the property is not name but first name, and here the age is below 18. So we want to use these facts that the property is called first name and that the age is below 18 to display custom error messages. We will first look how the try-catch block works, and then we will look at a very common mistake that happens when we work with JavaScript in the DOM and how we can avoid it using the try-catch block. Let's say we want to loop over this array of customers and display a personalized message. So we say for let customer of customers. So let's write a try-catch block. So we say try curly braces, and below that we say catch, or we catch the error. And below that we have the finally block, which is optional, you don't need it, but we just want to see how it works in this example. So in the try block, we want to try something. In the catch block, we want to catch the error message. And finally, we want to run some code on each iteration regardless of whether the try block was successful or not. So we want to welcome each customer. So we say console.log. Welcome to our shop. And after that, we put the customer name. So customer.name. So as you can see, it loops over the entire array and it prints welcome to our shop plus the name. And for Eliza, it prints nothing, so undefined, because name doesn't exist. We have first name instead. Now in the finally block, we can run some code that runs in each iteration. So we say console.log, iteration finished. And now you can see that after every iteration, we have this finally block being executed, iteration finished. Inside of the catch block, we can catch the error message. So for now, let's also just print it to the console. And it doesn't show anything because we haven't defined an error message, right? At this point, it doesn't throw an error, but it instead just says undefined. That name is undefined. But if that's our real shop, of course, we don't want that. It might be that we have missing customer data. So in that case, we want to do something else. Right? And that's where we can define a custom error message and do something else instead. So up here we can say if something is true. So if there's no property customer.name, then something should happen. And in a try-catch block, what we can do is we can define a custom error that we then can catch here in this block. The way you define an error is like this. You have to throw a new error. So throw new error. And then you can define, for instance, a custom error message, such as this customer has no name provided. And then you can console.log this error message here, right? So now you can see that it loops over the entire array, but now instead of printing out welcome to our shop undefined, we have this error instead. So error, this customer has no name provided, and this finally block still runs. It still says iteration finished. If this was a real application, we could now print a message to the customer saying that he should give us a name. So for instance, console.log, please provide us with a name. So you can see right now that first of all, it tries to run this block. It sees there's no customer name, so it doesn't execute this statement up here, but it jumps directly to the catch block and it prints out the error message that we defined up here. And then it prints out, please provide us with a name. The finally block still runs, and then it continues with the rest of the code. Let's delete this again, because I want to show you that you can define several errors depending on what's happening. So for instance, if you have a customer that's below 18, and is not allowed for whatever reason, then you can throw a different error and you can say customer is below 18. So now as you can see, it goes through the entire array. Once we get to Eliza, we don't have the name property, so it says this customer has no name provided. That's the error that we threw in this if statement. And once it gets to Mark, he does have a name provided, but he's below 18. So this if block is executed and it says we throw a new error, we jump to the catch block and we print out the error, which is, well, the customer is below 18. And still the iteration finished runs in each case. So you now see already one beauty of the try-catch block is that you can provide custom errors and you can catch them and do something with these errors instead of just running the code for all of the different iterations. And you can also differentiate between code that should only be run under certain conditions as well as code that should be run in each case. here in the finally block. Let's just comment this out for now. And let's look at the example of DOM manipulation. And it is here where the try catch block is extremely handy and can save you a lot of headaches. So what I mean by that is, well, let's look at DOM manipulation without try catch. As you can see, I've added this paragraph with the class of main text just below our heading. And let's say we want to do something with that. So we say const text equals document.query selector, and the class that we gave it was main text. And once we have that, we want the text content, so we say const text content equals text.text content. And then we just want to console.log it. All works fine, no problem so far. But here's where a lot of errors can happen. So let's simply say console.log before and console.log after. Still everything works, but what if this element doesn't exist? So let's say we say mains text, which doesn't exist. Now you can see that the before statement runs, and then it tries to look for this text element, which doesn't exist, it's null, so it throws this error, and everything after that doesn't execute anymore. So you don't see console.log after. And that is a problem because all of the code that follows after this error right here, well, simply doesn't get run anymore. And in a real-world application, that can very easily break your code. Now, how would you solve that? Well, let's copy this first and comment it out. We say DOM manipulation with try catch. And what we do here is we put this in a try catch block. So we try to get the text element and print out the text content. And if we can't do that, we print out the error message. And now you can see that it still prints before. It tries to run this block of code, which doesn't work because we don't have this element with a class of mains text. It gives us the error. Right here, type error text is null, but then it continues with the rest of the code. So you still see this code block right here after. And that would mean that every code that runs after this try catch block would still run, even though we have an error with this element right here. It is a very common problem when you work with JavaScript in the DOM, that it might not find an element, that it might not find a certain element property. And if that's the case, JavaScript will throw an error and your code won't run anymore. And you can avoid it simply by wrapping it inside of a try catch block. Another very common use case would be that you try to fetch some data inside of the try block, and if you can't fetch the data for any reason, or if there's a certain error message, you can try to catch the error inside of the catch block. So that is how and why to use the try catch block in your code. If you did find this useful, please leave a like and a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. Thanks for watching and see you next time.